How to homeschool a 2-year-old. Oh, I have a love-hate relationship with this question, and I get it a lot more than you think I would. By the end of this video, I promise I will give you 5 things to focus on as you are homeschooling and training up your 2-year-old that at the end of your homeschool journey, you will see played a huge part in helping them be independent, confident, self assured, loving, kind, responsible, and all the things that you hope for in that 2-year-old. Now, before we even get started, in the descriptions, I have a free class called The 3 Stages of Homeschool, which will help you see the 3 very distinct and different stages of homeschooling so that you can look at your children no matter what age or stage they're in, and then you'll have a greater confidence in what you can do to help advance them in their education. But let's get back to this idea of homeschooling a 2-year-old, and I'm going to use a controversial analogy because I think regardless of whether you agree with the way that my husband and I have trained up our own boys, you will be able to clearly see how this applies by the end. So take for a second and think about high school dating from the journey of a 12-year-old that goes through high school with this end goal in mind of someday I'd like to be married. I would like to be in a loving, committed relationship. Can you see that? Can you see the 12-year-old that is filled with hormones and this burning desire to be loved and appreciated and adored and respected and honored and all those things? And at the end, they can clearly see this need to do it well, right? Now, in culture, sometimes you'll have this 12-year-old that makes the mistake and is not guided and directed in those critical high school years to take it slow. What our 12-year-olds are being encouraged to do is to go too fast, to experiment, to engage in things that cost them financially, emotionally, and even physically as they are working towards this goal of being an adult someday in a loving, committed relationship. And this idea of jumping into things before they're ready, jumping into relationships, jumping into situations, jumping into financial responsibilities, or fill in the blank of all the things that could happen when you have a 12-year-old that goes too fast, right? That means different things for different people. Then take another situation where you have another 12-year-old that has the same goal in mind of someday being in a loving, committed relationship, married and healthy and secure and happy and all those things. And they take this journey between 12 and marriage, 12 and loving, committed relationship. And instead of looking for things that they can do now that they're not developmentally, emotionally, or financially ready to do, and they take that time instead to do 12-year-old things, to invest in friendships, to learn how to help around the house, to learn how to do whatever it is that they love to do, be it music or dance or art. And they spend 12 to 18 and above investing in themselves, investing in their character and their heart and their attitude and their skill set. And now jump forward with me into the future, and someday they are in a position where they can step into a relationship. Well, they don't have to bring all of these pitfalls and things that other 12-year-old has to bring into their future with them. Instead, they step in with confidence. They know who they are. They know how to make wise decisions, how to get help when they fall into this area of confusion. This makes perfect sense, regardless of whether, like my husband and I, you are on the side of make sure that you invest in your kids and you take advantage of childhood and the teenage years to invest in your future rather than chasing the rabbit of relationships and all that emotional drama that is completely infused by hormones and craziness. Instead of doing that, invest in yourself, invest in your families, invest in your friendships and things that could help advance you as you get older. You can see the difference. And in one respect, you can see a child that ends up stepping on a whole bunch of emotional and developmental landmines. And in the other example, you can see a child that is secure and confident and ready. And now when you look at their future and you look at their potential future lifelong relationships, you can see that one steps in to that relationship with confidence. They know who they are and they add value into that relationship. The other, even though they are equally in need of being loved and appreciated and have this desire to love and to serve, they have baggage that they need to carry. And so some of these things will need to be unlearned in order for them to step into that future with confidence, right? This makes perfect sense. And I know that at this point you're nodding your head thinking, Bekki, I have a 2-year-old. But this applies to your 2-year-old as well. If you take a 2-year-old and you look toward their future of graduating from high school, and you're too fast to hand them worksheets and textbooks and pencils and pens and calculators and all the things that they should be doing later, if you hand those to a 2-year-old, it can do to them the same thing that it would do to a 12-year-old to move too fast into things that they're not developmentally ready for. Your 2-year-old is still in need of all of those 2-year-old things, and their life needs to be filled with boundaries and security so that they can develop into who they will be by the time they're 5. Most of your character developmentally is set in stone, or at least a very solid foundation is laid by your 5th birthday. So instead of worrying or being concerned with how do I homeschool my 2-year-old, instead step back and focus on the home part. Because what I find in coaching homeschoolers that have kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and above is that they're trying to undo the things that they did because they moved too fast, that they didn't concentrate on the things that we're going to talk about in the rest of this video. And what ends up happening is that you are trying to reverse engineer activities and attitudes and things. And you have this beautiful ability to start right now with your 2-year-old and to lay a foundation that will set them up for success. And you will never, ever regret hiding the school part and focusing on the home part. They go together. But so much of the early childhood development is the foundation upon which your child will stand on academically later. So don't underestimate these things. Now, who am I? My name is Bekki. I have been homeschooling with my husband for over 25 years. We have 5 sons that have now launched successfully into life in their own rights. There are a couple of them that are married at this point. We have 3 of them that are in various stages of college or university. They're all experts in their own fields, and it varies from history and screenwriting, musician, scientist, mathematician, and someday Olympic rower. So we have this whole gamut of kids that we have raised up in our home. And one of the things that we did right was that we did not rush childhood. Childhood is so important. So let's talk specifically about your 2-year-old. Your 2-year-old, if you do anything that looks like academics at all in their day, it should be limited to 5 or 10 minutes. They don't have the attention span to sit and listen to a story and talk about what it's about and then color in a page. They don't have the attention span unless you have one like my Sam, who is our academic brain, but you still want to resist doing more than just a very teeny tiny bit. So what are the 5 things that you can focus on with your 2-year-old that will set them up for homeschool success? They're simple, and you are going to be tempted to stop this video and start looking for the best curriculum for a 2-year-old. And I'm going to encourage you to listen to all 5 and to take this gray hair and to lean into these things, because these will set your kids up for complete and total success later when they are ready to hold a pencil. Number 1, the very first thing that you want to focus on with your 2-year-old is a routine. It seems so simple, but so many people are just running from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And their 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and older have no rhythm in their day. A 2-year-old, a child, needs predictable, repeatable activities that happen in their day so that they can settle in and they know this is quiet time, this is eating time, this is story time, this is bath time, this is bedtime. This is where you lay the foundation. And don't underestimate how important this is. Because when I'm dealing and talking and mentoring with kids, homeschoolers that have kids that are in like 3rd grade, and they haven't taken the time to establish that routine, it's the first thing that I'm telling them that they need to focus on is find your rhythm of your day. And it's so hard for them because, again, like that 12-year-old that's been released too quickly into the world, their child at 3rd grade has had so much freedom and so much lack of routine that it's really hard to pull it back in. So again, you're at an advantage. Your 2-year-old doesn't need a whole bunch of variety in their day. Instead, they need a very predictable rhythm to their day. A time that they wake up in the morning, a breakfast routine, an after breakfast routine, a before lunch routine, lunch/nap, rest in the afternoon, etc. You need to establish a routine that includes activity, food and water, hygiene, and rest. Those things all need to be included in. And it, again, you're probably thinking, well, duh, Bekki, of course. I cannot tell you how many homeschoolers I've talked to that don't have these things in place. So number 1 is routine. Number 2, get out and explore with your child every single day. Stomp in puddles, crunch the leaves, explore the seashore, go a little bit into the trees and explore in the forest. Go in your community and find the pockets and treasures that are right around the corner from you, and just let your child discover. They need to look, they need to listen, they need to smell, they need to touch. They need all of this input coming to them because it's forming all these connections in their brain. And I'm going to encourage you to keep your phone in your back pocket or in your purse at least for 2 hours in the day with your child when they are active, when you are hanging out with them. 2 hours in the day where your phone is just put on hold. Put it on do not disturb. This world is so filled with moms and dads that are like this, and they're pacifying their kids, and they're missing all of the connections. So get out and explore with your kids and put your own smartphone away, except in a case of an emergency, and you figure out how much is too much or too little of screen time for you. Your children at age 2 should have very limited screen time. And you will have to wrestle that out with yourself and with your spouse or whoever is in your circle raising up your child. It is so important that they have very little access to technology at age 2 because they need all of the tactile input in order to make the connections in their brain. They need to go barefoot in the mud. They need to smell stinky smells at the dump and talk about things that are stinky. They need to go out and pick up leaves and sticks and flowers and all the things. So routine, explore. The next thing is the obvious homeschool thing. It's the closest that you should get, in my opinion, to homeschool. Can you guess what it is? Reading. There should be pockets of time predictably in your child's day where you sit and you read picture books. Now, I'm going to tell you, after 25 years of homeschooling, coaching homeschoolers and teaching in the public, not the public school, but teaching in classrooms, that children never outgrow picture books. Picture books are condensed language into a beautiful marinade that water your child's soul. It builds their curiosity and it fills their tank so that later they will be able to pull from these ideas, these characters, these words, these images, and that will be the backdrop of their creative writing and communication. So you need to fill their well with amazing stories. And it's okay and needed to read the same stories over and over and over and over again. And if they drive you crazy, get an old-fashioned tape recorder, break out the book and sit next to your child, and you read the story and point to the things in the book, and then have them make a noise like ding, and then you turn the page, and then you read the story. And when you're all done, you'll have your very own read aloud that when they push the play button and they sit with the book, they will relive that moment of mom or dad or grandma reading that book to them, but you don't have to read the story 1 trillion times. That is a secret tip, something that I did, especially as I started to get outnumbered by children. But marinate your kids with literature. Marinate them with literature. And when they're little, it's picture books. They need to see what a skunk is if you don't want them to go near a skunk, which you don't. They need to see what a hippopotamus is, or what the under the earth looks like, or the insides of a backhoe, or whatever the things that your kids are interested in. And stories are the way to take your kids into places and into situations that you otherwise wouldn't have the words to describe. So marinate with story. What we did was we had library cards, and we would go to the library, and whatever the maximum amount of picture books I was allowed to check out, that's how many picture books I would go to the library and choose. And I didn't think hard about it. I would sit in front of the picture books, and I started with A, and I would pick however many picture books I could, and I would take those home, teach the children how to keep them safe, because it's important that you keep those books safe so that you don't have to pay the library fines. And then I would begin reading the stories, and I started to watch what are the things that make the kids really excited, because even at age 2, they're going to be drawn to different things, bugs or fire trucks or butterflies or fairies or fill in the blank. Your kids are going to have these natural things that they're drawn to. Don't limit them. They're way too young to put them in a box and stamp it and say future scientist, future dancer, they're way too young to do that. So you have a routine, you explore, you read. This next one is you're going to want to do lots and lots and lots of things that develop their fine motor skills. Children have no business holding a pencil until they're called pincher skills. These need to get developed, and in today's culture, where kids are spending so much time on devices, fine motor skills, pincher skills are underdeveloped. So you outsiders might look in and you say you homeschool your child, but what the outsider will see is lots of Play-Doh and clay, things where you're taking spaghetti and they're lacing it into colanders, or lacing beads, or taking push pins and putting it into cardboard. Anything that can develop their fine motor skills, Legos, Duplos, blocks, all of those things they're the foundation. See, you don't be in a rush to add handwriting pages. It's too little, too young. It's the foundation to excellent handwriting later. It's the foundation to being able to hold a pencil and to do math neatly. They can't do it if they don't have the fine motor skills. So really lean into things that develop the fine motor skills. And the very last thing, and there are more, but just in this list of 5, the last component is rest. Your children need to see that it is okay to rest and that they can do it without a device. And so in our homeschool, if you wanted to take a page out of our playbook, we had 3 pockets of rest in our day. The first one is obviously bedtime. Now, as a new mom, I did not know that I had the ability to help my child sleep through the night and rest, and to set my own children's bedtime. It wasn't until somebody told me, hey, that 2-year-old that doesn't go to bed till 10 or 11, that's way too late. Bedtime should be like 7. And I went, what? You can put your kids to bed. And then I took a week and trained him, and then bedtime was 7 o'clock. So bedtime is the obvious one. You decide when your kids go to bed, and you work really hard in love to establish a bedtime routine and have them stay in their bed so that they sleep restfully. Some of your kids are going to be early risers, some of them are going to be late risers, but you decide when morning is. So that's bedtime routine. The second one is that we always had a quiet time built in sometime between breakfast and lunchtime. For us in our home, it actually turned into, at one season, it was quiet showtime. And I had a block of time in the day that I would put on a 15 or 20-minute age-appropriate show, like a baby Mozart or something. And the kids would sit and they'd watch this little video, and then it was typically right before lunchtime. So it was this wind down where they would do something that was investing in their heart, investing in their mind, but allowing their body to relax. Then they would eat lunch, and then they'd move into nap time. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, my 2-year-old stopped taking naps at 18 months. But my gray hair is going to tell you something. Kids need rest. So you can take another page out of our playbook. Our boys graduated from nap time on their 5th birthday, but they didn't always sleep. So instead, what we did was we instituted, blocked off, and established quiet time in the afternoon. And it was mom and dad directed, mom and dad mandated, and I would have the kids lay on their bed. I would give them a book or two, or if they were little, they'd get the little board type books. And the rule was, this is rest time. You will stay on your bed until rest time is over. Everybody in the house quieted down for an hour to 2 hours every single afternoon. And it worked. But I did have to tell one of my kids specifically is super busy. And the idea that he might miss out on something was enough to stop him from resting. So every single day until his 5th birthday, I would set Stephen on his bed and I would give him his little box of books, his little bin of books, and I would say, it is quiet time. You are required to stay on your bed. And I know that you're not going to sleep, and that's okay. You just may not get off your bed. Do you understand? And he would say, yes, mommy. And then I would say, I promise, when nap time is over, when rest time is over, I will come get you. Because sometimes our bodies decide they need to sleep. So if your body decides it needs to sleep, I promise you I will come back and I will wake you up and you will not miss anything fun. Sound good? And he would give me a hug and then he would have rest time. The beauty was that up until he was 5, he would sleep 2 out of 7 days out of the week. But the other 5 days he would rest. His body would slow down. He would look at stories. And all of these things weave into establishing a foundation that your 2-year-old will build upon as you move through the next few years of homeschool. Don't be in a rush to buy a curriculum or to find math activities or writing activities or science or history. They don't need any of that at age 2. You can explore those things naturally by when you're playing with blocks side by side with your child. You can be 1, 2, 3. You can be just naturally weaving it into conversation, but you don't have to be in a rush. Again, think about that 12-year-old. When they get advanced too fast, too deep into things that they're not developmentally ready for, they end up creating problems or falling into problems for themselves. But if they're given the chance to do what's developmentally appropriate for them at that age, it builds confidence, it builds assurance, it builds this place of safety that they can blossom into who they are supposed to be. And your 2-year-old is no different. They need the space, the safety, and the boundaries of routine and rest and all of those things in order to safely develop into the 3-year-old that they need to be, the 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old. Don't be in a rush with curriculum. How do you homeschool your 2-year-old? You focus on the home part because it will help lay the foundation for the school part later. Now, if you got all the way to the end and you have questions, again, go back down to the descriptions and take that 3 Stages of Homeschool Masterclass. And in there is a way that you can get in contact with me and we can have a talk about what it is you're doing in your home, and I can help you cast a vision for what you're going to be doing over the next few years, getting ready and set up so that you can hit the academic part in a way that will cause your kids to just flourish and thrive. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.